New York Giants fans, what is going on? We've got an action-packed show coming up for you, a Kenny Golladay injury update, Joe Looney retiring out of nowhere, and of course, we're going to touch on the brawl that happened at Giants training camp practice on Tuesday. But first, I need you to like this video if you want a Giants winners and losers training camp video. If you do, make sure you like the video because the bosses, they've been on to me. Yo, Marsh, we got to get the likes up on the videos if we want to do more New York Giants content. So help me, help you. I want to do more New York Giants videos, so like this video so we can do so. New York Giants fans, what is going on? We've got a huge show coming up for you. And first, we have to touch on the unfortunate news that came out of Giants training camp practice on Tuesday. Kenny Golladay left practice with an apparent hamstring pull. He dealt with injuries last year in Detroit with the Lions, and unfortunately a hamstring injury. So this is a road that Kenny Golladay has gone down before, and it was a concern when the Giants signed him. Durability for Golladay was a big issue when the Giants offered him that massive contract in NFL free agency this offseason, and you had to know at some point Golladay was going to get injured, but now it's a hamstring injury that he dealt with last year. Joe Judge was asked by the media about Golladay and when he left practice and to give an update on the injury, and he said this. He's actually seeing a doctor this morning. He said this on Wednesday. In terms of a worst-case scenario, I think we've kind of avoided that. In terms of dealing with it, but we'll see what the timetable looks like. Injuries are different for every player, so we'll have to see how his body responds and make sure we do right by him. Plain and simple, this is not a good sign. Kenny Golladay, he dealt with a hamstring injury last year where he missed significant time. He played in just 5 games last year for the Lions dealing with a hamstring injury. And when you're Kenny Golladay and you're dealing with that and you're missing time in practice coming over to a new team, and Daniel Jones and him have already struggled to get on the same page. So the fact that Golladay is going to miss time at camp and not be able to build up a rapport or chemistry with Daniel Jones, it's upsetting for Giant fans to hear. And when you look at this New York Giants depth chart, they're not going to be hurt with Golladay missing time. I don't expect him to miss regular season time. He will miss preseason time, but there's guys that will step up. Sterling Shepard, a veteran, he's been there, done that. He'll step up and be the Giants' #1 wide receiver. This will open up opportunities for Kadarius Toney to get more time. Darius Slayton to prove that he's a player that deserves to get more time. And John Ross and David Sills, who have been training camp standouts, will get opportunities to show these coaches, hey, I deserve to make this roster and I can make plays. But going back to Golladay, the Giants need him out there. They cashed him out in NFL free agency, and when you do that, you need those guys on the field. Daniel Jones needs to build up chemistry with Kenny Golladay, and the only way you can do that is by getting reps in practice. I'm pretty concerned, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Are you worried about Kenny Galladay's injury? If you are, and you know that he's dealt with a hamstring injury in the past, last season with the Detroit Lions, go down in the comments and type Y for yes. If you're not concerned and you think Kenny Golladay may be able to bounce back quickly and get out there for week 1 of the NFL season, go down in the comments and type N for no. Joe Looney has retired after just signing with the New York Giants this past Saturday. He practiced 3 times at Giants training camp, and he retired out of nowhere. This is the second player this week that has retired after just signing with the Giants. Todd Davis, the inside linebacker, the former Denver Bronco, also retired this week. And there's been a lot of speculation about why are these Giants players recently signing and retiring? Could it be Joe Judge? Are they not fond of his coaching style? Do they not want to run laps? Do they not want to do push-ups? There's a whole lot of controversy in the Twitter streets, and everyone just unsure of what's going on. But Art Stapleton, he had this to say about Joe Looney retiring. Joe Looney has decided to retire, and his agent tells me, as Jordan Renan reported, signed with the Giants last Saturday, and after 3 practices, his body decided it was time. Looney told Ross and the New York Giants he had too much respect for the game, coaches, and players to just take a spot on the roster. Looney, he spent time in the Cowboys, and he was familiar with Jason Garrett in this offensive scheme. So at the time, it just seemed like it was going to be a great move. The Giants had an injury at left guard with Shane Lemieux, and Looney was going to be that veteran presence on the offensive line that could play guard and could play center and could fill in whenever a Giants offensive lineman was struggling or an injury happened. So for me, my one-word reaction is, damn. We didn't need this. We needed the Giants and Joe Looney Looney to stick around because we are thin at offensive guard and center. But I want to hear what you guys have to say, so let me know. What was your one-word reaction to Joe Looney retiring today? When you take a look at this projected Giants offensive line depth chart, there's just a lot of question marks right now. Shane Lemieux, he's dealing with an injury, and he has a week-to-week, day-to-day timeline that Joe Judge has highlighted. And then you have Nick Gates at center, who's still a young player, Will Hernandez at right guard, and Matt Parrott at right tackle, who had just started practicing this week, got off the PUP list this past Monday, and him and Nate Solder have been splitting the reps at right tackle. But for me, I'm just curious. Did Joe Looney retire because of Joe Judge and Looney's first couple practices with the Giants? He ran a couple laps, and after practice, he said he loved the fact that the Giants had to run laps when they were messing up, and he was a fan of Joe Judge's coaching style. But in a weird development, he retired the very next day. So there's a lot of questions about if it was Joe Judge and he just didn't want to be a part of this system. But Sterling Shepard was asked about the sudden retirement, asked about Joe Judge's coaching style, and he had this to say, and I absolutely love it. If you don't like it, you're welcome to leave. I don't mind it. And my one thing to say about this is, get the softies out of here, man. If you're not ready to do some push-ups or run a lap because Joe Judge is punishing you and holding you accountable for jumping off sides or a poor quarterback and center exchange, you can go. The Giants are trying to build a culture about heart, passion, and toughness, and that's what Joe Judge brings. Joe Judge is a no-nonsense guy that's going to hold every single Giant on this roster accountable. It's been the talk of the town. Everyone's been talking about the brawl at New York Giants training camp that happened this past Tuesday. And there's no video of this because Giants reporters aren't allowed to film during 11-on-11 situations. But I'll break it down to you like this. The fight started after Xavier McKinney leveled Corey Clement on an inside run in a non-contact drill. Obviously, if you get hit in a non-contact drill, you're going to be upset, but it's football. You got to remember that. Evan Engram, he retaliated. He jumped in on the pile. And veteran Logan Ryan, he didn't like that. He hit Evan Engram, which some are calling a cheap shot, in the back when he wasn't looking, and mayhem broke loose. Daniel Jones was at the bottom of a pile. It was a dog pile. And Joe Judge, he wasn't a fan of that. He called practice, and there was 2 more situational drills and time periods still left in practice, and he called practice and called every New York Giants player to the goal line, and they started running gassers and doing push-ups, high school football style. This is something that I love about Joe Judge, and he's just going to hold everyone accountable, and he was asked the very next day about this brawl and everything that went down, and he went on to say this. It's an extremely long quote. I didn't see anything to cut out of it, so I'll read it to you guys quickly. He said, "It's a teaching point no matter how it happens. To be honest with you, my message to the team is the reason it happens is insignificant. The result of what happened is what the consequences is going to be, and we can't have that. We can't coach that. This time of training camp, guys do get a little bit chippy with each other, but I'd say that stays on the field. When all our players walked off the field yesterday, we had no issue carry over to the locker room, the cafeteria, the training room, anywhere else. Our guys are in here, and I'm not saying we're laughing off the situation, but they understand that we're all one team, and we can't do that to each other. And the most important part of that lesson we have to learn is ultimately we have to eliminate bad football. Penalties are bad football. The lesson has to be we're not doing anything that's going to get our team in a position to be penalized. I absolutely love this by Joe Judge. He reacted on the field in a stern way, and he's a no-nonsense guy. And he let everyone know we're not going to have fights at training camp. But in that quote that you just heard me read, he really didn't have a problem with it, if you're being honest with yourself. The media made this a much bigger story than it needs to be, and Joe Judge, he kind of put that to bed. But I like what he said about we're not going to play football and bad football and suffer self-induced penalties. And that's what would have happened if the Giants did that in a game situation. Logan Ryan, he can't cheap shot Evan Engram in the back, and Joe Judge mentioned that would be a penalty, and that's why he had beef with it. But at the end of the day, it's football, it's training camp. You're going up against the same guys for 2 weeks. You're going to get chippy. You're going to be upset, and you're going to try to take some anger out on the offense and defense. And this was the first practice where the offense really got the best of the defense. Daniel Jones, he didn't have an incompletion all practice long, and you had to think that the Giants defense didn't like that, and they had to take out their aggression some way or another. But when they got to the locker room, it was all good. It was all gravy. Logan Ryan shared this tweet, and everybody knows the gif of Roy Williams walking into the locker room, hey, in the NCAA tournament. He said, did this. And that was Daniel Jones walking into the locker room after practice today. It's football. Things get heated. We're all good over here. And I completely agree. Fights happen in football. It's an aggressive sport. You have to play with passion and a chip on your shoulder, and that's what this New York Giants team is going to bring all season long. If you want to talk more New York Giants football, follow me on Twitter. I'm at @MarshallGreen_. Send me a DM with your Giants question. Let's just talk shop. Let's talk some football. I love talking New York Giants football, and I want to do it with you guys. So follow me on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_.